Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 74. Today we're going to talk about the pampered/spoiled athlete and whether that's a parent problem, coach problem, kid problem, or whose problem it really is.
I think it's just
or is it a problem?
Is it a problem? No, I think it's always a problem.
All right, but before that, let's talk about our sponsors. First off, Cleat It Up, cleatitup.com. Cleat It Up FP is the tool we want you to use to solve all your communication challenges within your team or within your organization. Check them out at cleatitup.com. Also want you to check out NextAir. NextAir is a Memphis-based industrial gas, medical gas, research gas, welding supply, and safety PPE supplier. With strategically placed retail locations, sales branches, and distribution centers throughout the Southeast, NextAir is never too far away. They maintain centralized product warehouses to serve you better and be more reliable. Through our services, you can receive the products you need when you need them. Our fleet of trucks will get you the gas you need when you need it. If you're interested in any NextAir product or service, or just want to talk through your options, please get in touch. Our customer care team at 888-639-2474 will help you find the branch or outside sales rep in your area. Please reach out to NextAir. They'll take care of all your needs. And finally, Don, let's talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. If you are a listener and you're in a position to support us, we would love for you to become a patron. So check out patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We have a bunch of different benefits in place now for our patrons. There's the basic benefits that you'll find when you look at the patreon.com page, but also we're doing a virtual coaches clinic February 21st, which is free for our patrons. We're also doing a substantial discount on our Square Cuts training discs of 40% off for our patrons. So if you become a patron, there's definitely some payback and some ways for us to say thank you to you. So, Don, the pampered/spoiled athlete, is it a problem?
Oh, there's no doubt, right? So we've seen it for, I guess, ever. It's just a part of it. But you've got to, I guess, figure out how you're going to manage it, what you're going to do to keep the cohesiveness of the group intact, and we've got to try and get to the bottom of it and or rehabilitate a little bit, right? Reestablish some goals and reestablish some guidelines for those kids that feel like they might be a little bit different than everybody else.
Right. Well, one of the things that we have to come to grips with, every team has a best player.
Sure.
Always going to be that way. Doesn't matter what level it is, doesn't matter how competitive it is, doesn't matter whether it's professional, college, high school, travel ball, whatever it is. Every team has a player who is the best player on the team. Sometimes that player knows who they are, sometimes they don't, but the people who are observing, the people who are watching, and certainly the people who are coaching know who those players are. And, sometimes you have more than one or two players on a team that you see as really, really valuable, that carry a little bit more importance to the success and likely success of the team. So my question is, so we think it's a problem. Let's talk about what it really looks like when a player is pampered or spoiled. So the first thing I always think about is kids that don't want to work hard because they're naturally talented and they've been allowed to kind of skate by on their natural ability without working as hard as maybe they could or maybe they should.
No, that's sad when that happens for sure, Tori, because, it's contagious. They kind of set the tone and everybody looks to them for, how things should be. And if it's that way for them, it's going to be that way for many.
Right. And so I think that what it looks like is something we have to be aware of. I think there's other things, kids that have, I guess what you would think of as that prototypical bad attitude. They mope around a lot. They sulk around. They complain a lot. They don't want to do the stuff that we expect of them. So I think there's lots of different ways that it manifests itself. But when we start to think about a team sport, all of those start to feel really negative.
Sure. No, it makes it tough for a coach.
Yeah. And so now here's the next piece of this then. So where does the problem really come from? One of the things that you learn when you learn about different coaching techniques and psychology and stuff like that, when something's not right, is who really owns the problem. So who owns the problem of the pampered/spoiled athlete? Is it a kid problem?
Maybe.
Okay. If it's a kid problem, is it because they just don't know any better, or they've been set up to believe that it's okay, or they just don't understand the impact of what their actions have on the team?
I think the age of the player too, Tori, plays a little bit of impact in that. And when they are younger, it's a situation where they just haven't been taught yet
Right.
how things are supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I've noticed being on the instruction side now for a while, I'm not so sure that all of us deal with these problems on the same consistency or the same basis. One of the things that I'm very fortunate is most of the kids that I work with for training are pretty highly motivated. Most of them are coming to me because they've kind of reached a point in their development where they're looking for that higher level, more demanding, more expectations type of situation.
So they're open to it.
Right. But every once in a while, I'll have a kid that just, comes in with a really negative attitude. The old coach in me, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess I don't know for sure whether it's really the right way to see it. I've had to quote unquote fire kids from lessons.
Right.
I've told kids not to come back. I've told kids that I'm not going to work with them.
Not interested
in working with them, because I'm in a situation now where if they don't come back, somebody else will. And so I don't feel from a coaching perspective that I'm obligated to deal with their negativity.
Yeah.
So if the kids don't know there's a problem, where do we start solving that? If a kid is just kind of blindly going along, being this bad attitude kid, this pampered, spoiled kid, how do we help them see the error of their ways?
No, I think, and two, I try and figure out where this came from whenever I see it, and somebody has allowed them at some point to be that way, and to do that, and whether it was previous coaches, whether it was mom and dad cater and accommodate to whatever attitude or whatever mood they might be in, they don't have the comfort of cutting that off, then sometimes we kind of have to interject and just create an environment for them that they have to be different in.
Right. Well, one of the greatest lines in the history of sports movies is when Mr. Miyagi says there's no such thing as a bad student, only bad teachers. And I think when we talk about this topic, because I don't think any kid is born bad.
Right.
I mean, except, I don't know, The Exorcist. Something like that. But kids aren't born bad, but they learn bad. They're taught bad. They're allowed to to make bad choices. They're allowed to do things that are potentially negative. And so, yes, I think it becomes a kid problem, but I think that the trying to find a solution to it is a little bit more challenging. So is it a parent problem? I think quite often it is. Now, again, judging how other people parent their kids and decisions that other people make, I think, is really slippery slope. I don't know for sure that any of us are in a position to tell somebody that they are doing a good job or not doing a good job.
Oh, I'm going to stick up for them because I'm a softie too, Tori. But
right. But I think that one of the challenges is for us as a parent to see the potential harm that we are allowing our kids to create for themselves if we don't step in. If we allow them to manifest these bad attitudes of this negativity, this entitlement, that we're really setting them up for challenges and potential disappointments later in life.
No, I think that you're exactly right, Tori, and a lot of times I think it's just easier to give in to the kids, right? Because we're busy, because we've got a lot of things going on, because I've got work, I've got all these other things, but to take some time to sit down with them when we start identifying some of these, signs that they're falling into a bad mode, it's time to interject and to cut it off as soon as we can, because it isn't going to be pretty. It isn't going to be something we're proud of, and it's not going to be conducive to their success later if we allow it.
And realistically, whether it's a problem that was created by parents and how they've interacted with their kids, whether it's a kid problem because of how the kids have been raised or how they've acted and what they've gotten away with, any case, that ultimately becomes a coach problem because we're talking about having these kids on our team. And so then I guess that's where the rubber meets the road. Am I going to be the coach that wants this player on my team so badly because she's talented that I'm going to turn a blind eye and let her
We've seen it.
Let her act that way? Or am I going to be the
it.
coach that digs in and says, okay, that's not acceptable. I'm not going to allow that.
No, we've seen it. I know I've seen it a bundle of times when I'm looking across at the other team and watching how that player's acting, and the coach is just kind of turning their head like they don't see it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not really happening, but that's a handful of a handful to manage. You'd hope that somebody steps in eventually and
Right.
lets them know that that's just not the way to get it done.
Right. So from a coaching perspective, let's talk about a couple things. Number one is, what kind of setting are we in? Okay. Are we in a win at all cost world? Are we in a instructional world? Are we in a recreational world where we're trying to, just, let the kids play and have fun? And I think depending upon the situation that we're in, probably creates some different parameters for how we're going to act as coaches. But I think that the challenge is, if I'm in that win at all cost world, I think sometimes that's where we see this happen the most, where that coach
Right.
turns a blind eye because they see a player's unbelievable abilities, unbelievable talent, and they kind of, bite their lip and say, well, I'm just going to have to put up with the fact that she's got a bad attitude. I'm going to have to put up with the fact that she's spoiled rotten. I'm going to have to put up with the fact that she's not good to her teammates because she's so talented. She helps us win more games.
No, I think it's an awful situation. And again, it takes time to sit down and talk to these kids, whether they're young adults at the college setting or, whether they're very young, and just talk about how their actions are affecting others and people around them, and how later in life it's just not going to fly.
Right.
And, how much better things can be if they can be that positive leader on our group because their skills are better, that they're really, truly going to benefit more later if they can, act a certain way.
Right. Kind of nip it in the bud before it continues to manifest itself.
At least try, and we would say rehabilitate, right?
Yeah.
Or try and change the actions.
Well, and then the other part of it, I think, is depending upon what setting you're in as a coach. If you're seeing a player on a daily basis, let's say you're in a school ball setting where you're seeing them, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, or you're in a travel ball setting where you're seeing them, maybe once a week for practice and
Tough.
And every other weekend for tournaments, then again, I think your opportunities to make a difference are impacted by which situation you're in. In your school ball setting, I think a lot of the coaches in that realm are supposed to be teachers and supposed to be educators. Now a lot of us as professional coaches kind of got into coaching because the whole teaching thing wasn't that much fun, so we wanted to coach more instead. But I think in that setting, the obligation is certainly there for you to help do everything you can to try to help a player adjust their attitude to become more team-oriented, more positive in their interactions with their teammates and with things. Travel ball setting, I think that's a little bit different animal again.
It's tough for sure.
And
well,
so,
and two, you're. I mean, we talked about this before. Is how a lot of their attitudes are created before you get them.
Right. If it's something that's going on 24/7 at home, and then you're trying to solve it in the 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours you get a week, I think you're definitely
Challenged.
climbing uphill.
Yeah.
So, but I think that the moral to the story is, at some point in time, from a coaching perspective, you have to kind of draw a line. Okay, so then another aspect of this, what happens when the coach is part of the problem?
The coach could be
Could
the
very
one,
much be part of the
couldn't they?
problem.
Yeah.
So let's spin this back to the I want to win no matter what, and she's so good she gives us a better chance to win. Could I be making the problem even worse? So
that's why I say we inherited this from the other side.
But in some cases, I can see where coaches are actually not even just enabling it, but encouraging it.
Right.
Well, you don't have to carry the equipment. Well, you don't have to do the sit-ups. You don't have to do the push-ups. You don't have to.
I've seen this at all levels too, Tori.
And so the whole idea of coach's role in this, I think, is something we want to start to think about. One of the things we did with one of our teams not too long ago, we did a devotional. We were talking about preparation and how God wants us to be prepared for whatever life is going to throw at us. And in that devotional, a lot of it was geared towards athletic preparation, but the kids took it in a whole nother direction and wanted to talk about preparation for real life. And so it's a younger team, so they were talking about what's going to happen the first time somebody's got a bottle of alcohol.
Right.
What's going to happen the first time somebody's got drugs? What's the first time somebody's going to pressure you to do things, that you don't want to do, that you know you shouldn't do, and being prepared, by thinking about it now,
talking through it,
and kind of rehearsing in your mind. So if I don't want to do drugs, the first time I'm in a situation, I'm at a party or whatever, and somebody offers me drugs, what's my response going to be? Have I thought it through so I know
I'm
like,
prepared?
Oh yeah, you guys go ahead, do what you want, but it's just not for me. Or am I going to have nothing to say and get talked into or pressured into doing something? So I think for us as coaches now, thinking about dealing with this situation, that preparation is important. We need to start to think about, well, what am I going to do? My best player is a total pain in the
backside
all the time.
Yep.
What's my plan? What am I going to do when that happens? Because if you don't have it now, you will have it someday. And depending upon your situation, are you the coach that's just going to wipe your hands clean and say
turn your head?
Yeah, you can go one of two ways. Are you going to be the coach that the first time somebody shows a bad attitude, you're like pack your stuff and get out. I don't need this. Or are you going to be the coach that's no matter what? Well, you're really good, so I want to keep you.
So I'll deal with it.
Right. And so where on that continuum are you going to fall? And what's your attitude going to be? And I guess, what are you willing to do? How involved are you willing to be to help resolve the situation, to solve the situation? Are you the coach that wants to win so bad that you're going to let that star player get away with murder? Or are you the coach that's so strong in your beliefs of what's right and wrong that you're going to stand firm and that player's going to have to either get with the program or get out of town?
So yeah, and again, you got to be. It's a teaching moment, right?
Right. And it made me think of a situation. This is many years ago now, but University of Arizona was about ready to get on the plane to go to the College World Series, and Coach Candrea was informed that one of his 2-star pitchers had done something that was against school policy, against team rules, and he was faced with a really simple decision. Do I potentially hurt my team's chances of winning this national championship, or I do what's right? And he did what's right.
I was going to say, I got an idea of what he did.
He told that player,
to
stay home and unloaded her stuff off the plane, and they went on. And of course, in the Hollywood version of how this played out, they ended up still winning the national championship. Nancy Evans pitched every inning of every game and was the dominating pitcher that they needed, and they ended up still winning the national championship with their other star pitcher sitting home watching it on TV.
Right.
But so in that situation, Coach Candrea already knew in his mind, he was prepared for that challenge because he wasn't sitting there on the tarmac going, oh my gosh, I wonder what I should do. He already knew.
But think about it this way too. To this day, people are talking about why you don't do things that aren't part of the school policy because this is what will happen.
Right.
Or it could go the other way, saying, well, it's okay because he'll still let you go.
We'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Let's win this national championship and then we'll solve it after the fact.
But even his teams today would be saying, hey, he'll let you play anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's where this topic is so important. So coaches, recognize that there's a problem. Try to figure out how involved you want to be in solving it. Figure out how much you want to get in the trenches to try to help, quote unquote, rehabilitate a kid or help a kid be more successful for the rest of their lives. But you will be dealing with this pampered/spoiled athlete. Whether you think it's the kid or the parent doesn't really matter. You're dealing with the kid's impact on your team.
Do the kids a favor and fix it, right?
That would be my take on it. I'd say do whatever you can to help them fix it. And if that means you lose a talented player, sometimes addition by subtraction really does have some benefits.
I love it.
Don, anything else for number 74?
No, can't wait for next week, Tori. This is good.
So that's going to wrap up Coach Prep episode number 74. Make sure you check out our sponsors, Next Air and Cleat It Up. Make sure you check out the patreon.com/everythingfastpitch page. Make sure you check out fastpitchprep.com. Order your Square Cuts training discs there. They're $49.95 a dozen. Just go to the website, fastpitchprep.com. You can order them, and we'll get them shipped out to you right away. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please reach out to us at fastpitchprep@gmail.com or everythingfastpitch@gmail.com, and we'll put them on the list of things for us to talk about. And so for Coach Don McKinley and our producer, Stan Lewis, this is Coach Tori in the Cherokee Batting Range Podcast Studio saying thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.